I go a little bit too fast or so I want to slow down. So today,
Okay, sir.
we're starting exactly 9:30. Today, we're going through quickly yesterday's notes. So if you want the link to the textbook, I can send it to you, but I will be screen sharing. So it's not a case that
Okay, sir.
yeah. So you don't necessarily need it right now. Okay?
Okay, sir.
But there's a link in the textbook, the notebook that I want to give you, which is the scanned copy. I scanned the book, the textbook, the volume 1. I scanned it and I want you to go on it. So when you go on the link, you're gonna see a book called Raymond Tulsi Volume 1 textbook. You're gonna go on it if you don't have the book,
okay.
that is. So good morning, everyone. For everyone that doesn't have the book, right? The textbook, I scanned it. I want you to just go on the class notebook, right? And you will see Raymond Tulsi Volume 1 textbook in highlighted. You click on it and you have access to the soft copy. But let's get started. All right. So we're gonna quickly do a review of good morning. Right. I don't want to repeat myself because we're a little bit behind time, 1 minute. So I'll give you guys 2 more minutes to get adjusted. But what I was saying is that I'm screen sharing on another device to go through the notes as well as to record it. Because I realize that some of you guys have been saying I'm going a little bit too fast. Right? So what I did was to make sure if everyone that doesn't have the textbook, you have the soft copy available. So you'll see Raymond Tulsi Volume 1 textbook. That is yours. If you don't have the textbook, you can use that soft copy version of it. But let's get started. So when you go on the textbook, let's review the notes from yesterday, right? We talked about decimals to percentages, percentages to fractions, and fractions to decimal. Now what I'll do, I'll quickly summarize everything that we talked about yesterday, quickly, right? And then we'll go into today's notes. So for decimals to percentages, right? What did we essentially say? We essentially stated that when you have a decimal such as 0.25, right, you can turn that as a grade. So if it's teacher you got 0.25 on an exam, she's essentially telling you that you got 25% on an exam. Everyone remember that?
Yes, sir.
All right, let me take register because everyone seems to be here. All right, great. Now, that's decimals to percentages. Let's move on now. Yesterday's notes, we're just reviewing it quickly. Now, for percentages to fractions, good morning. So to summarize what we talked about yesterday with percentages to fractions, we said that a percentages is just percent, which is just 100. So if we got 33%, that is 33 out of 100. So picture the percentage symbol as just a really fancy one with 2 zeros. And that is making a percentage into a fraction. Everybody understand?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let's move on to the final topic we talked about yesterday. Oh, no, I messed up. 1 second. Okay. Right. There we go. So the final topic we talked about yesterday was fractions now back to decimal. So if you got 53% on an exam, which would be 53 out of 100, if you wanted to turn that back now into decimals, you would what? Divide by a power of 10, which is 100, right? And then you get 0.53. Everybody clear on that?
Yes, sir.
All right, now we can get into today's notes. So let's close up that. As I said, you don't have to go on a virtual notebook right now, but there is a textbook on there that I scanned for you. So you can have access to it if you don't have the book necessarily. All right, so let's get into today's notes. So let me close this up.
Question, sir. What is the name of the textbook, sir?
Raymond Tulsi, Volume 1, the one that you have already, Khalil.
Yes, sir.
Right. So let's go into today's notes. So today's notes, we're going to understand that when you're dividing 53 by 100, it's not every time you're going to have a value of 10, so you move the decimal place. What if you had 5 divided by 8? How would you get that into a decimal, right? So write this for me. So if you're using the textbook, though, it is going to be on, I think, page 61, right? Let me check it for you, but we're going to write this. What if we did not have a power of 10 dividing a number? How would we represent it as a decimal? Write that for me. Let me go to the exact page for you. So the topic is fraction to decimal using long division. right? Fractions to decimals using long division. Okay. Now, I do have a scanned version of the notebook that I want you guys to look at. All right. Bam. Everything is technologic, right? So let's look at the notes for me. So we summarize how to express a percentage as a fraction, right? But what if that fraction now was a mixed number? Does anyone know what a mixed number is?
Yes, sir.
All right.
What is the exact page this is on, sir?
This is another textbook. Some of you guys might not have it. It's the red one. It's the red one. So I just take little snippets from each textbook so I can get the points across from every book, right? So this is on page 136, right? So read this for me. Ludi, can you see this? Where it says percentages, you're gonna read the first line for me. The fraction of half.
The fraction half can be expressed as a ratio
Of 1 to 2.
So how do you read?
All right.
1 to 2.
1 to 2. Right? Continue. The fraction
half can be expressed as an equivalent fraction whose denominator is 100.
All right, stop there. Okay, so we're essentially now looking at what happens when you have a fraction that does not have a denominator of 100. How would you get that into a decimal and percentage, right? So now we're looking at the fraction a half. We're going to try to represent it as a percentage first of all. So write this for me. The fraction a half can be represented as an equivalent fraction whose denominator is 100. Let's explain that. So if you look for me, where it says a half multiplied by a 50, all right, there we go. If it says equivalent fraction, that basically means that you can represent that fraction as another fraction that will be in the same value, right? 50 divided by 100. How many times can 50 go into 100? 2 times, right? Right. So that fraction, 50 divided by 100, is an equivalent fraction to a half because 50 goes into 50 one time and 50 goes into 100 2 times. Everybody understand that?
Yes, sir. Yes,
right.
Sir.
So write this for me. To represent a fraction as a percentage, that does not have a denominator. Write that for me. To represent a fraction as a percentage that does not have a denominator of a power of 10. So right, so we don't have 53 divided by 100 or any of those. We just have a half, for example. We can represent this fraction using an equivalent. And we just determine equivalent as, what does the term equivalent means? It's basically equal in value.
So can you repeat the last word because you were
All right, let me slow down. So to represent a fraction that does not have a power of 10 as a denominator, we can represent it as an equivalent. Here's the spelling: equivalent. Right? Whose denominator is of 100. So in the case of a half, we can multiply the numerator, which is 1, and the denominator, which is 2, by the same value, and we get 50 divided by 100. 50 divided by 100 is the same value when simplified as a half. Everybody understand?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's look at another example because I'm pretty sure some persons don't understand. All right, so A while ago, Rudy read the word 1 to 2. That's called a ratio. So take this from me. A ratio is another way. A ratio is another way to write a fraction. So when you see a half, you can write a half as 1 to 2. So the numerator separated by a colon, and then you have the number 2. Okay, everybody there? Okay. Now, how does an equivalent fraction now tell you a percentage? Because that's what we're essentially trying to find out. How does a half now can be represented as a percentage? Well, essentially, the equivalent fraction, 50 divided by 100, is called a percentage because it is having a denominator of 100. So the goal of any fractions that you see, such as a half, you're going to multiply it by a number that gives you 100. So in the case of 2, we multiply by 50 to get 100. But let's look at another example. Let's go down closely. So we're on page 136. Let's look at another example. All right. Can anyone see activity 1?
Yes, sir.
All right. So your activity for me.
Sir, we do activity 1, sir.
Wait, can you repeat?
Sir, we do activity 1, sir.
Right. So we're going to go through activity 1 together. So activity 1 says, state the meaning of each of the following percentages and draw a diagram to illustrate them as using a simple pi of 100%. Right? So let's simplify it. Write this for me. The first one we're going to go through together. If you have 25%, that is 25 divided by 100, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, how many times, because you guys should know this, how many times can 25 go into 100? You can use a calculator, you can cheat.
4 times.
4 times. So 25 into 25 goes 1 time, and 25 into 100 goes 4 times. So equivalent fraction to 25% is 1 divided by 4. And to represent this on a pie, we would essentially have 1 slice of pie and 3 empty pies. Everybody understand?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes, sir.
All right. So now your first task, write this for me, is going to be completing the rest of the examples, right? So you have 75%, you have 175%. So for the 175%, it's obviously above 1 pie. So you're going to essentially tell me how many pie slices is essentially 175. Yeah?
And so, sir, what about 87.5%, sir? That would be 87.5 thirds.
Right. Okay, let's work that one out. 87.5 divided by 100, right? That cannot be simplified to say that, oh, it's basically 8 slices and 0.3. So what you're going to do for me, you're just going to simply represent it as a fraction, which is 87.5 divided by 100, right? And leave it as is. You're going to essentially tell me that, well, this fraction cannot be simplified to give me an exact amount of pies, because it would have given me like 3 pies and a little slice left. All right, so you're going to write 87.5 divided by 100. All right? Okay. So that's essentially your task. So you have 200%. If 100% gives us 4 slices, how many would 200% give us? That'll give us
8.
right. So after 0, just got a quick mark right there. Okay. Now the next topic. So that was the first topic of just percentages to fractions.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, I got the answer, sir, for 87. And sir, for that one, I got 0.875, sir.
So that would have been a decimal. So you convert it not to a fraction, but you convert it to a decimal. So let's look at now, how would you represent that 87.5 as a decimal? So we're going to go into the next part now.
Sir, 875. And that's what I got, sir, when I divided, sir, by 100.
Right. But I'm saying, Khalil, 87.5 divided by 100 is the fraction, and 0.875 is the decimal.
Yes, sir.
Right. So we're gonna understand now.
I was having a little problem with the tax. That's why I asked you, sir.
Yeah. So I'm saying no for that example that doesn't have a perfect like 85 or 80. We're gonna understand how can we transfer our 87.5% as a fraction. So you're gonna follow along with me. Let's read how to understand that now. So it says a percentage is a fraction simply that has a denominator of 100. But how could we represent a numerator that doesn't have a perfect 5, like 85, 80, 95? How can we do that now? Right? So essentially what you're going to do, you're going to follow along with me. So let's say we have 37.5%. And our goal is to make this as a fraction. Are you seeing the picture?
Yes, sir.
So this picture now will help you now to answer the 87.5. So follow along with me. Let's go back down. Okay. 37.5 is what? A mixed number, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Follow along with me. So if you have 37.5, you can represent it as what? An improper fraction, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's go back up now to 87 that we had. Represent for me quickly, guys, 87.5 as an improper fraction. So you would multiply 87 by 2, right? Remember the steps for improper fractions? All right, let's go through the steps again.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you remember? Okay, good. So let's do this example to help you understand how to transfer 87. So let's do an example first. So let's do 37.5. Right, look closer for me. 37 multiplied by 2 is
74.
74, right? And 74 plus 1, because remember you add the numerator, that'll be 75.
75, sir.
Right, so let's go back up. 87 multiplied by 2 is
174.
174 plus 1.
Did you write it down on plain paper or did it in your head?
No, do it on your paper.
No, I did it on the back of my book. I did it in my head.
Good job, guys. Good job. So let's
Sir, I did it in my head, sir.
That's good, man. That's good. So follow along with me now. 174 plus 1 is 175. So the improper fraction is what now? 175 divided by what? What's the denominator in the original question? 2.
2, sir.
Right.
Yeah.
So our improper fraction is 175 divided by 2. Okay. So we're at step 2 now. Okay. Step 2 essentially states when we have that 175 divided by 2, we're going to now multiply it by 1 divided by 100. So do that for me. So write 175 divided by 2 multiplied by 1 divided by 100. Right. Okay.
5 out of 8.
You got 5 out of 8. Great, Khalil. But hold on. Let's go to the steps because I'm pretty sure not everybody is fast like you. Let's go down. Let's go down. Right. So we have 175. Does 175 and 100 have something in common? Anyone?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Multiples of 5.
Right. So we can simplify them. So essentially, you're going to now simplify 175, right? And simplify 100 as well.
I'm sorry, I did something wrong, sir.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Let's go through the steps because I know that probably there will be some error in there. So tell me now.
Sir,
Uh-huh.
and sir, I put 5 instead of 7 for that, sir. And so the correct answer was supposed to be 7 and not 5.
7 out of 8. Right.
And so 7 out of 8 cannot be simplified anymore.
Right. So that now, Khalil, is your fraction from the value 87.5%. So do you guys see the steps now? We had 87.5% and we wanted to represent that as a fraction. So let's go through the steps one more time. You're going to take some notes from me. The first step is to represent your percentage as an improper fraction. That's your first step. Right that for me? The second step, so let me give you a moment to write. So the first step was to represent your value as an improper fraction if it's a mixed number. Okay? No, when you represent it as a mixed number, which is an improper fraction now, you're going to multiply it by 1 divided by 100. That's the second step. Right? Now the third step, you're going to simplify it. Okay? So if you have, for example, 175 and 100, they have something in common. They have 5, right? They have 25. You can simplify them. So you're going to essentially tell me now, 25 into 175 goes how much time? 25 into 100 goes how much time? So we know 25 goes into 100 4 times. But how many times does 25 can go into 175? That's going to be 4, right, from 100.
That's what it is,
Right, plus the 3 now, because 25 goes into 75 3 times. So you're going to add 4 plus 3, and that gives us 7. So we have 7 divided by 2 multiplied by the simplified 100, which is now a quarter. Right? And now you're going to just multiply the fractions across. So 7 multiplied by 1 gives us, right? 2 multiplied by 4 gives us
8.
So now our fraction from 87.5% is
7 over 8.
7 over 8.
I did it kind of differently though.
all right. So you're gonna, so your task then is gonna take a picture and show everybody your step in after class. So because it's always good to learn different steps. So now, guys, we're finished with that topic. So now your task is go to your task quickly. You're going to, so remember, you have 2 tasks already. So the first task is going to be to complete 25%, 75%. We've already did 87.5 for you, which is the hardest one. And you're going to do the first 5. So you're going to do 25, 75, 87.5, right? 112.5 and 125%. Express those as fractions. That's your first task. Everybody got that?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on now. Right. And if you guys want access to this soft copy, just let me know because it's in the virtual notebook. I can send it to you if you can't find it. All right. So the next step now that we want to do, we've completed expressing percentages as fractions. Now we're going to do the opposite. We're going to now express a fraction, right, as a percentage, such as 2 divided by 8. How would that represent it? How would that be represented as a fraction, as a percentage?
Sir, I have a question. So, sir, what was the task, sir?
The homework?
Can you go back to that page?
Okay, let me go back up. So it's on page 136, right? Activity 1, question B, 1 to 5. Right?
1 to 5, right?
Yeah, 1 to 5.
And sir, we already do numbers 1 and 3, sir.
Oh, we already did. All right, thank you, Khalil. I didn't realize that. So we already did 1 and 3. So here's the task. You're going to finish all of them then. Since we did so much for you guys, you're going to do all of them. All right, let's move on. So that topic that we just went through was expressing what? A percentage as what? A fraction.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, why did you scroll down, sir?
Oh, you haven't finished? Okay, let me give you a moment. Remember, this is, guys, this slide is on your virtual notebook, so use it up, right? But I have to keep moving because the class time is limited. So after class, you can go back and look back at exactly what the task was, but we need to continue, right? All right, and the class is recorded as well, so it'll be on the school's YouTube page, right? So let's go back now and understand how can we do the opposite. What if we had now a fraction 7 divided by 8 and we wanted to know the percentage? Your teacher told you that you got 9 out of 10 on an exam, just as I do. I tell you that you get 9 out of 10. You're going to represent that number as a percentage now, which is pretty simple. That's just 90%. But you're going to represent 9 out of 10 as a percentage using the steps. So write this for me. Any fraction or mixed number can be expressed as a percentage. And the first one we're going to go through together is 4 divided by 5. Okay. Now, in the first step, in the first topic that we went through, remember that we had a half, right? And we multiplied 2 by a number that made it to be 100. Now, what value when you multiply 5 gives it the value of 100? 20. 20, right. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 20 is 100. You just add an extra 0. So write this one in. The first step is to look to see if it's possible to multiply your denominator. So write this one in. Look and see if the denominator can be multiplied to give you 100. Pretty simple. First step. Look to see if the denominator can be multiplied to give you 100. All right, in this case, we had 4 out of 5, but let's look if we have an example that doesn't have a perfect value in the end. All right. Right, here we go. We have 30. So let's look at this example. 30 cannot be multiplied by a perfect number to give you 100, right? But let's see how you can use an alternate step. If you have 17 divided by 30, right, you can use 100, because remember, it's percentage you're looking for. So you're going to say, well, basically, 100 divided by 30 is the...
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah?
Sir, can you send me the link, sir, for the virtual notebook so I can access the task, sir?
Right, let me send you again. There you go. Right, let's continue. Okay. Now, I want someone to help me with this because my mind is very bad right now. I can't remember. If I multiply a number 30, right, times 100 divided by 30, what 2 value cancels out?
0.
After you said 0 cancels out? Okay, cool. But,
Just gonna say.
all right, let's look closely. So look at this for me. So someone is going to work out mentally. Oh, that's a very bad... All right, there we go. Right?
Sir, do you know that this can be found in Drive, sir? I'm waiting to Drive for it, sir.
Can you repeat?
Sir, this can be found in Drive, sir.
Okay. Right, yeah, so I uploaded there for you. Right, so look at this for me now. 30 is a whole number, correct? Right, guys, come on. 30 is a whole number, right?
Yes, sir.
Right, but in your head, you have to remember that a whole number is technically a improper fraction that has 30 divided by 1 or 5 divided by 1. That will always give you back the whole number. So in this case, we really have... Let me see if I can annotate. Can I? I don't think I can. But essentially, 30 is a fraction that have 30 divided by 1. So we're looking at now what value when you multiply 30 divided by 1 gives you essentially just 100. So when you multiply 30 by 100 divided by 30, what 2 value cancels out?
30 and 30.
Right. So therefore, we have a denominator of 100, right?
Yes, sir.
And that will make you represent the value as a percentage. Because remember, the rule is to always have the denominator being 100.
100.
Right. So we essentially, so write this for me. The step to take when you do not have a denominator that is easily transferred to a percentage, comma, the step to take when you do not have a denominator that is easily transferable to a percentage, is that you multiply it. Everybody there? Is that you multiply it?
Not yet, sir.
All right, let me slow down. Someone ready?
So after you say denominator, what goes after that?
Yeah.
Have a denominator that can't.
Right, that cannot be simplified to a percentage. So let's say we have 30 that cannot be simplified or multiplied to give us a perfect 100. Right? So we take that 30 now and expand it using an improper fraction. Everybody there?
Yes, sir.
Right? An improper fraction where that value, and by the way, guys, at the end of each week, I'll be requiring you to show me your notes. And that will be a part of your graded work. So that's a new rule. At the end of each week, I'm going to ask you to take a picture of your notes of the week, and you get a grade for that. Because I'm pretty sure you guys are pretty laid back, and I want you to run in academic
Sir,
ways.
why not the
I'm not using a phone, sir.
Um,
Using a laptop.
Well, we'll figure it out later, but I really want to see your notes from the week. So we'll talk about it later, but let's continue. So what we say now, we use that value as a denominator and put the percentage above it. So in the case of 30, we put it as a denominator and multiply it by 100 in the numerator. So that will now simplify to give us 100 as the denominator. Everybody there?
Sir, I got confused after you said to simplify to 100, because then you said we expand it, but we expand it using an improper fraction where that value.
All right, yeah, we expand. All right, let me repeat it. We expand it using an improper fraction where the value is the denominator. Right? Expand it using an improper fraction where the value is the denominator and the percentage value or the percentage is the numerator. Right? This is the final line. That simplifies to give us 100. So if you had 5,000 right there, you would essentially put 5,000 multiplied by 100 divided by 5,000. Understand? But
Yes, sir.
So that's how to get the 100 in the denominator. But remember, in math, you always have to do on the right what you did on the left. You have to have equal chance for everything. So if you multiply by 100 divided by 30 to get 100 in the denominator, you have to use that same value and put it on the numerator. Let's zoom up right there. Right. So in the case of the 17, multiply by the same value, that will not change the value of the 17 to give you a percentage. Let's look at the value. What would it be? Zoom out. So that essentially now tells you that, oh, you have 17 times 10 divided by 3, which is basically the same thing as 100 divided by 30. And that will give us 56. So write this on me. So let's do an example. So you should be writing the example at the same time. That will give us now 56 2/3 as the percentage. So take down this example for me. So the question gave us 17 divided by 30. Right? Can you repeat?
Answer the topic is to change a fraction to a mixed number, right, sir?
No, we're changing a fraction to a percentage. So we're changing this 17 divided by 30 to a percentage on your test. And if you got 56 and 2/3 on the exam, I'll be very ashamed. So do not get 17 out of a 30 on the exams. Try to get 25 or more, or out of 30.
As just a big thing when you change a fraction to a percent, you have to divide, right, sir?
Yeah.
Or multiply.
So
So it's like when you change a fraction to a percent,
right,
divide, right, sir?
right. Let's go to the steps again, because you should have been taking the steps, Khalil. The first step that I mentioned was that you multiply the fraction by the denominator over 100. It's going to be 100 divided by the denominator of the fraction. That will make the denominator overall be 100, since 30 times 100 divided by 30 gives us what, Khalil?
100 divided by 30.
Right? Times 30 gives us what? 30.
It's not 3 and remainder 10.
Right, because 30 goes into 31, 30 goes into other 31, so you only have 1 times 100. Right? But you have to do...
Step 2 is to divide, right, sir?
Right, step 2 is to divide.
Divide what? Sir, divide the numerators, right, sir?
Step 2 is to multiply. Come on, stick with me. You should have been writing...
I'm getting confused here. You said step 1 is to multiply the denominator by 100.
Look, Khalil, look at the screen. Are you seeing the screen?
Yes, sir.
Step 1 was to use the denominator, whatever value it is, such as 30, put it as a fraction above 100, and multiply the numerator and the denominator by that new value. That's step 1. Understand?
Yes.
So look at it for me. So don't work out anything, just put the steps down. Step 1 is to put that denominator as an improper fraction above 100 and multiply the fraction by that new value.
So step 1 was to put the denominator as an improper fraction, right, sir?
Right. That's step 1. Right? All right, quickly, guys, before the session up, because we have 50 seconds left, you're going to rewatch the video. I'll post it right now. You're going to rewatch the video, and you're going to complete for me. Let's look at activity. You're going to complete for me activity 1, right, as well as question 1 and 2, right? So exercise 7B, question 1 and 2, as well as the previous activity that we mentioned above, which was the 87.5% above here. Everyone remember that? Right. So those are your 2 tasks, activity 1 and exercise 7B. You can go back in the video and see the exact task, but I want you guys to complete that for me, and in the next class, we'll go through the answers, okay? Everybody good? 3, 2, 1. See you guys. That was a good class.